Today is our second session, and we will be doing our first proper coding class. As you probably remember from last time, this subject is divided into 3 coding units. The first one is devoted to basic coding, and for more advanced people, to functional programming and to the Pandas library. In the second one, we will do basics of image processing and somewhat more advanced large-scale image processing with NumPy, for example, and maybe use some library functions from OpenCV, scikit-learn. We'll see. Okay. And in the final and third unit, we'll see the basics of deep learning, and we'll see how the PyTorch deep learning library works with different degrees of involvement in 4 different levels of programming. So people who are absolute beginners now, they will not be so beginners then, but I hope that they can run some deep learning algorithms and understand the basics of what they are doing. And for people who already know quite a lot about programming now, I hope that they can understand a little bit more in depth how the PyTorch library works. For example, why it is basically an automatic differentiation library, a library that basically computes derivatives. In Japanese, derivative is bibun, I think. And exactly how that works and how that can be used to solve deep learning problems, what those are, what deep learning can do and cannot do, and exactly how to do it. In the start of subject questionnaire, quite a lot of you say that you want to improve your coding, which is great because you will have quite a lot of opportunities to do that. But few people say that they want to understand what they are doing, that they have used some deep learning code, but it was basically something that they found online or that ChatGPT made. ChatGPT is incredibly dangerous with deep learning code. Okay, so dangerous means it will give you something that is wrong and will not tell you. Okay, so be careful, be very careful with ChatGPT in general, but in particular, ChatGPT for image processing, for deep learning, for anything that's a little bit more involved, really not great. So it's certainly a good idea, the one that quite a few of you have, of I would really like to know a little bit more about what's going on here. The way we will do that is that we will be doing code on our own, okay? And today is the first session where we will be doing code. I will be giving you some coding tasks, and I hope that you will be trying them while the session progresses. I will give you some time to code on your own, and then I will give a part of the solution or maybe the whole of the solution. But I hope that you will use the notebooks in the courses that are already posted online to improve on your own. Okay, today will be like a little bit of a test run, but I hope that you can improve on your own and that you will ask me questions at any time about the questions, the things that you don't really understand, the places where you get stuck. Okay. Alessandro, your mic is open. No problem. That's good old Zoom classes for everyone. Okay, so let me start sharing my screen with, let's see, I think this is the correct option. You should now be seeing the web class page, okay? If you're not seeing the web class page and my mouse hovering here, just complain, okay? Okay, so I was mentioning the 3 units in the course because there will be 3 code projects to complete during this course. The first one is already published. It was published last week, and it will be going on until the 11th of May. So for about 1 month. Okay, so here you have it. And today we will start to look at code that can be used to solve this first coding project. I'm happy and a little bit alarmed to say that some of you have already started. Some of you have already finished code 1, okay? So that's an important thing too. There are many, many different levels of coding for the people in the group. Don't be shy to ask for more if you want or if you need more, okay? We will do the best with the grading, and the hope is that everyone who makes an effort, who tries, who improves, will pass the course and hopefully will get a good mark. But you should not be bored. So if this is all very easy for you and that's a possibility, just let me know and we can try to find something slightly different, something that maybe helps you in your graduation research directly. Okay, you can even submit your data and we can have a look together and see if we can adapt the contents of the course to what you are doing precisely. Okay, so here is the first code project. Okay, in web class you have it, and then you can click it and you have a Colab notebook that has all of the questions. For beginners, you do not need to complete everything. Okay, if you're able to do the general processing of the data, that's fine. There are contents that work with, as I'm saying, the general processing of this type of tabular data. We'll see quite a lot more about this today. Then there are tasks that use the pandas library. I don't think you need to get there, but if you do, it will be great. And then towards the end of the assignment, there are contents about profiler tools, function optimization, and so on. Those are a little bit longer and a little bit deeper, and you don't really need to get into those. Okay. For people with higher level, well, depends how much higher. If you can complete all of it, I think you will find some contents that will be of interest to you. Today, as I already posted in web class, let's go there. In the announcements section, we have some contents that we will be using today. Okay, so we have these units, beginners course, units 1 and 2. And for people who already know that, we will be using some units from the courses 1 and 2 that relate to pandas. Okay, so if you click here, you will go to the course indices, and for beginners, we will be working with these 2 units, and for advanced, the other ones, which are the ones that use pandas. Okay, I think the third one is this one. Okay. For a little bit more of the detail on what we are doing, we have this general questions thread where you can, of course, ask your questions. And this is what we are going to do right away from now on. Okay. So for the beginners, go to the course that we mentioned before. Okay. And open unit 1 about variables. You will see quite a lot of definitions of variables. I will tell you a little bit about them, and I hope that you can do the problem about converting to Greek, the Mongolian currency, to yen. Okay, I hope you can solve this problem that I left for you. You have here quite a lot of content that you can use. If you read this, that should be very easy. Okay, that's the first step. Please go and try doing that. Course 1, Unit 1, and do the yen to Greek converter. Okay, did I write that correctly? No, I did not. The yen to Greek is the one that has already been done. Do the opposite one, the to Greek to yen converter. Okay. And then we will also use the split function in class string. As you will see here, you have quite a lot of information on strings. Strings are character change in Python. And in our first project, we will be using quite a lot of them. So have a look at this, Google the function called split, and use it to divide a string that you create using its commas, okay? It's commas, it's white spaces, whatever you want. One particular character, use that to split, to divide your string, okay? Finally, we will try to go to course 1, unit 2, and solve the I have enough for some couture problem. So course 1, unit 2, which is about Boolean constructs, ifs, okay? And here you have quite a lot of content about Boolean operators, okay? Comparison, what Boolean chains are, have a look, the if structure, basically. And here, towards the end, you have this problem, okay? So try to solve that one too. That's what we will be doing today for the beginners. I will now explain a little bit the content for the advanced ones, for the advanced students. But beginners, you can already begin with this. First one, course 1, unit 1, and try to understand this currency converter example. You probably need to read up before, and then try to do the opposite converter, which should be pretty easily. When you're finished with that, do the strings. Okay, so please go. For the, let's call them advanced students, we will be doing a little bit of pandas. Before I get into details here, it's a little bit difficult to say who is a beginner, who is advanced. There are, of course, many different levels. My take here would be to try to push your limits, okay? So probably if you have done some programming, the contents today for the beginners part are pretty easy. So if you already know what a variable is, how to build an if in Python, this kind of content, then you should move on to this pandas content. If at some point you realize that you are in over your head and that the content is too complicated for you, then you can always backtrack. Okay, these lessons will all be recorded and will all be posted online, so you can do that slowly too. The advanced students, we will do the following things after I have commented a little bit on the beginners part, okay? So you need to make a new Colab notebook and download the same files as in project 1, okay? So if I go back to project 1 starts with this cell, okay? That downloads some files into the hard drive of the Colab machine. If you're a little bit confused about this Colab machine thing, you can go to the index and check this video, how to use Colab for the course. Essentially, whenever we are running a Colab notebook, we are not doing that on our own computer. Our computer is running a web browser, and that web browser is connecting to a distributed computer, to a remote computer somewhere in the world, a computer owned by Google, and we are copying this notebook there and running it there. We do that because that way we can have access for free to computers with a GPU, a graphic processing unit, that we will need especially for the third part of the course. Okay, so if you download files, you will see that those files are not in your hard drive when you run this cell. They are on a Google distributed computer. This is convenient. This also means that any file that you create with your notebook will be erased as soon as you end your session. Your notebook will not be erased. You can always come here and save it. Okay, you should probably make a copy. We'll do that in a second. And that part of the work, the coding that you do here, will be saved. But any file that you create using your code, that will be in the Colab machine, and you need to download it separately if you want to save it. Okay? Otherwise, you can also download these notebooks and run them using something like Anaconda or some other Jupyter Notebook interpreter. Okay. First of all, as I said, for the advanced students, you have to make a new Colab notebook, download the same files as in project 1 as we have seen, and even call the function that turns Excel files into a list of files, okay? This function here. So you have to run this and run this. You can copy that and run these initial 3 cells, okay? Once you do that, you will have all of the necessary files in text CSV format in that Google computer. I want you to then open a file called airtemp hour CSV, and I want to do that. I want you to do that using the file interface in Colab and also using pandas. File interface in Colab is here, okay? So you will see files here when you run those cells, and I want you to double click. See, I have some files here, not the ones that you need, but you can double click in the folders or files, and then you can check that. Okay, I want you to do that. This file has some problems. Basically, sadly, anytime we work with any type of data, the first thing that we need to do in any data science project is clean the data up. There are always format problems, parts of the data that are not correct, and so on. And I want you to start by seeing what the problems are and trying to correct them using the pandas library. You have some contents about pandas in the units I mentioned before, and that you have in the announcement thread, and I'm actually going to copy them here because then you will have them all in the same place, okay? So message is now posted, and you can go and check these 3 units. Course 1 bonus unit presenting the pandas library, course 2 bonus unit using the code libraries pandas, and then these 2 examples. Example 1, matching volcanic eruption data and using data structures to process data. So this bonus unit, this example, and then this example in course 3, okay? This one is more advanced. You can have a look at those for basic pandas coding, and you can just Google the things that you want to do, as one does generally in any programming project. Okay. So basically, for beginners, get acquainted with variables and coding, and for more advanced students, get a little bit acquainted with the pandas code library. Okay, it's now 9:11, 9 hours 11 minutes, and I will give you 5 minutes to ask any questions via this forum or via Slack if you are in Slack. Okay, afterwards, I will begin with the beginner's part of these exercises. Okay, so let's get back to it. At this moment, there seem to be no questions, so I will just proceed. No questions here, no questions in Slack. Just feel free to ask them, okay? I will try to answer them during the class if possible, and if not, I can always answer them later. You can ask questions at any time via these channels, okay? And I will do my best to get to them as fast as possible. If you have questions that involve code, maybe don't ask them here, but send them by email. Okay, you can send them via web class or via direct message in Slack. Any of those work. And if you have my email, well, you have it because I posted it, then you can also email me directly and I will get back to you as soon as possible. If you have questions about your code, always include the code and any files that are necessary to run it. In this case, for example, the files are not needed because they are downloaded by the code itself. Okay, anyway, let's start with the beginner part. So to complete this first programming project, where we will be dealing with structured data, this type of data that we usually associate with Excel or OpenOffice or Google Sheets, this kind of spreadsheet data. Okay, this kind of data. We will be processing this data that's very useful in many different research applications. And to do that, we will use Python. So we need to at least know the basics of Python. I hope to convince you that with just a little bit of Python, you can make programs to do any task that you want to do. And that's superior to usual spreadsheet software because basically you can program anything. You don't have to go and search for one particular function that does the slightly strange thing that you want to do with your data because you can code exactly what you want. And in order to code what you want, you just need to know programming. Programming is a way of thinking, a way in which we try to solve problems using algorithms. Algorithms are just defined as the collection of steps needed to solve a problem. So a cooking recipe is an algorithm, okay? We hear the word in movies and on the news, usually by people who have very little knowledge of what they are talking about, and an algorithm seems like something arcane. We hear about the algorithm in our, I don't know, Spotify lists or YouTube or whatever suggestion engines. And those are algorithms, all right. But an algorithm is something more general. It's just a collection of steps to solve a problem. So one could argue that we are using algorithms all the time for everything that we do. When we break down our problems into very small pieces, such that each of them can be written as something that a computer can understand, then we have a program. So a program is just the translation of an algorithm into a language that a computer can interpret. And from today, you will be doing small and then a little bit bigger programs. Thinking about problems, breaking down into steps to be solved, first bigger steps, then each of those big steps into smaller steps until you just have a succession, a list of instructions in something that a computer can understand, in particular in Python, in the Python programming language. Why are we using Python? I hear some of you wondering. Well, because nowadays for what we are going to do here for deep learning and for image processing. It's a very popular programming language with a huge community. It's also easier to learn than others. Is Python better as a fundamental thing than, I don't know, C++, C Sharp, Kotlin, whatever, Rust? No, it's not. It's just convenient, and it's a very good programming language. But there are others. Good news is once you learn to program in one programming language, then learning to program in another is much easier. Once you have mastered the way of thinking that programming is, then learning a second, third, fourth programming language is much, much easier. I remember the best programmer I have ever met saying that the best programming language out there is the one that you know how to use. So I hope that in this subject you will learn to use Python a little bit. In this session, we are going to start dealing with the basics of Python programming, and the most basic thing is the definition of variable. A variable is just the same concept that a variable is for mathematical functions, okay? My kids are now in primary school, and they start doing arithmetic problems like there are 4 zebras and 7 camels, how many animals are there? And after a while, they start doing problems that are not so specific, that are a little bit more abstract. Like you have 4 zebras and a number of camels for a total of 9 animals. How many camels do you have? How many camels is a number of camels in this case? There, basically, we are dealing with quantities that are not known at the moment, with variables. In programming languages, variables have the same effect, okay? They act as boxes where we can put values. So for example, here we have our first piece of Python code. Here I'm just running the notebook in the course, okay? I will just press play to run this. And Google will warn me very helpfully that this was not created by them. No, I know I created it, so I can still run it. So now this small wheel is turning, and we are running our first Python code. Nothing too spectacular happened because all we did here is create a little box called ramen price, okay, and put a 750 integer value into that box. What comes now is a little bit technical, but bear with me, you will understand this later. Variables represent these boxes, but variables are specifically like little arrows that point to a position in memory where the value is, okay? That means in Python that I can define one of these arrows, one of these things that points to a memory position with a name. The variable is that name and that arrow that points to a memory position, but then I can put basically whatever I want there. If I put 750, it's okay, but if I put a string called hello, the thing just runs the same way, okay? So, or even 750, a string that contains the number 750, okay? Everything runs the same. So that means that the type of the variable, whether it's an integer or a chain of characters or a real value, which we call floats, or a complex value, or a type that we have defined, something that we will do later maybe, then the variables work, all of them, in the exactly same way. In programming parlance, it's called that Python is not a typed language, so you don't need to define what type your variable is. In other programming languages, you have to, okay? Of course, then we can use these variables and do operations with them. For example, if one ramen price is 750 yen, probably I can compute very easily 3 ramen price by using arithmetic operators with my variable. 3 times ramen price, and then I can print the result, which is, of course, if one was 750, 3 will be 2250. Okay, I can do all the usual operations. I can define variables of different types. I'm not staying here, but have a look, have a long look if you can, okay? I can use the usual operators that you would expect, okay? I'm also, by the way, using the print statement, the print function, okay? Which what this thing does is that this outputs on the screen, in this case, on the output window of my code cell, the result, the value of the variable, okay? So here you have other uses of the print function with variables of different types, floats, strings, complex variables. I'm always very surprised that Python has complex numbers as one of their basic types. We will not be using them anytime soon, but so that you know. And then different uses of the operators, which is all very, very good with some errors here. Errors are very much part of programming life. In this case, I'm using one error to make you aware that some of the operators can be used with some data types, but not with others. For example, complex numbers do not have a smaller than operator defined, because of course they don't, okay? But basically, what we want to do is get to using our variables to make some something useful, some program that we can use. And with just the knowledge of variable and the knowledge of an operator, we can already do a very, very simple program, which is a currency converter. There are many currency converters apps out there, and you can do currency conversion with a calculator, and programming language can be used as calculators very, very easily, okay? So in this case, we will convert from yen to Greek. To Greek is the currency of Mongolia, where I had the good fortune of being last year. And sorry, I don't know if this is current now. So almost there, okay? As I was saying, I had the good fortune of being in Mongolia last year as a part of a project that we have together with some Mongolian researchers. And while I was there, I, of course, needed to use the local currency, which is called to Greek. From what I know, maybe some of you hearing me now might end up in Mongolia sooner rather than later. So this might be useful in the end. Basically, what I need to do to convert currency is just define a conversion rate. Okay, I had that one, and I have looked up the one for today here, and I can just define a variable that has this rate of conversion and print it. Okay, so now I have it here. And now when I want to convert a quantity in yen to a quantity into Greek, I just need to multiply the quantity in yen times the rate. Okay, so here, for example, I have decided to convert 250 yen to Greek, and I have done that here. As you can see, I'm not seeing any result. I need to print the to Greek value to see the result. Okay, if I want to convert another quantity, 10 yen, I can also do that. Okay, very easily. You can run the cells by pressing the play button or by pressing Shift and Enter, as I'm doing here. Let's convert now 245 yen, which is 6,174 to Greek today. Okay. So I can do that all in one cell. Okay, sorry. Let me change the conversion rate. Here too. I change the value here. Okay, and now I have all the previous code in just one cell. Okay. And I was asking you to write the opposite. One code where I input a 2 Greek value and get a yen value. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, I still need a variable for the 2 Greek value. Let's say I want to convert 10,000 to Greek. And I need a rate. Okay. Gemini is very usefully trying to suggest something that is totally and utterly wrong. Okay. So let's ignore it. This rate is going to be actually the inverse of this rate. So I'm going to call it actually inverse rate. And define it as 1 divided by rate. Okay. And now all I need to do to get my yen value is to multiply the 2 Greek value times inverse rate. Yes, now, Gemini, now you got it. So it's okay. Now we can use it. This is a very illustrative example of AI coding aids. If you already know what you're doing, sometimes you get to skip typing a part of the code. If you don't, you might end up with code that doesn't do what you want to do, okay? So as I was saying, if you're a beginner, I recommend that you ignore these coding aids because they will probably not help you, okay? So now I have a converter that tells me that 10,000 to Greek are about 396 yen. Okay, so let's see, for example, if this more or less works. So I saw before that 6,100 and what 74 to Greek are supposed to be 250 yen. Yep, it's right. Okay. Here I inputted them as integers and they ended up here as float because here I have introduced the float division and then Python is turning everything into float values because it's more general. All strings can be interpreted as floats, but not the other way around. Okay. So this is the to Greek to yen converter. We could even quite easily, let's add some code here, define a function that does this. Okay, functions. What are functions? Functions, and you have them unit 4. Okay, so you don't totally need them now, but you will need them in the future. Are a way to encapsulate, to put away some code that you're going to use repeatedly. So you start by giving them a name with the def function, and I'm going to call it to Greek, so T to yen C converter. Okay, not a very super useful way to define it, but I'm going to go fast. Usually I will define a string with a comment. Anything that starts with this, Python will not process, so I can add it as a comment, and then here I can just write to Greek to yen converter. So if I look at this code at some time in the future, I can know how this works. Okay, as you can see, I have something red here, which probably means I made some mistake with the coding. Okay, and what should this do? Basically, it should do this. Okay, I should have this, and I need to get the 2 Greek and the inverse rate. Inverse rate in this case is 1 divided by the rate, so I should define the rate here too. Okay. And then I just return the yen value. Okay. If I do this, then I can just call the T2YC with a number of 2 Greek, which is 6174, and a rate, which is rate. I could give it the particular value, and I can print all of this if I want to. Okay. So I get an error, which is again useful. Whenever you get an error, you will get many of them. You have to read it and see what's going on. This one is interesting. T2IC is not defined, and it's defined here. What's happening? Okay, I did not run the cell. So because I did not run the cell, Colab has not processed that. Now I can run it and I get the 245 correct result. Okay. So here we are using variables, we are using some operators, and we have even put them inside of a function. It is a little bit of more advanced content, but that you will use. Now, anytime I want to do this, I just need to call the function. I don't need to copy the code over and over again. I just call the function and the code is here. Okay. Okay, that was number 1. Let's go back here. We can also, by the way, see if there is any question. Meanwhile, not here, not in Slack. Okay, so first we wanted to do the yen to Greek converter. Sorry, the other way around. Now we will use the split function to divide some string. These things probably appear a little bit disconnected in this moment, but they are all connected by the first programming project. Okay, we'll have a look at it in a second. Strings are just character chains. Okay. Okay. So, sorry, I have an error because I had something defined before and I haven't run it. Yes, here I have a string variable called your and another one called ifmix, and I define them there, and now I use them here. I'm using them to stick together to string variables into one single string variable made up with the plus operator. Plus operator is the addition for integers or for floats, but in the case of strings, it's a concatenation operator. So I glue together 2 strings, the second one at the end of the first one. Okay. I can access strings positions. For example, the character at string position 0 is this S. Okay, everything that's numbered in Python starts at 0 and ends at length. So if I have a container, a list, for example, with 3 elements, the first position will be position 0, the second position will be position 1, and the third position will be position 2. So yeah, if I have 3 elements, that's all I will have. Position number 3 in my 3-element list will already be out of the list. If I access position 3, then I will be running out of bounds. Okay. Here I have some other uses of the string functions. and so on and so forth. I'm not stopping here. Here you have one of these out of range accesses, like I was saying. Let me just very quickly run the split function. Okay, you can Google it, but I can just call. I have this my string, remember, that contains this. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? From a song by this group Eurythmics, very 80s. And I want to call the split function. Okay, so I can Google it if I want. Not function, but function. Okay, and you have several pages with tutorials and so on. For example, this is the official Python documentation about what the split function does, with lots of explanation and some examples. Okay, Stack Overflow, Code Learn, all of these are pages that have lots of useful information for you at this stage. So I'm just going to call the split function, and I need to give it a character to split by. I told you about splitting by commas, but in this function, well, yeah, I can split by commas, no problem. So if I call this, what do I get? I have 1 comma here. So I will get a list with 2 positions. Okay, so first and second. If I add, if I make another string, let's see, comma string, and I defined it as hello, this is a string full of commas, and then I split it, comma string, and split it at, yes, the comma character, then I will get another list with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 components, even 6, because there is a comma here and I have an empty string there. So the split function receives a character and divides one string into a list of strings. Okay, list is a data structure that's indicated by these square brackets. And if you want to know a lot about lists, and you will need to, for the first programming assignment, you can go to course 2, unit 1. For the first programming assignment, it's a good idea to know the 5 notebooks in course 1 and the first notebook in course 2. But here we are already seeing a little bit about how these things work. Okay, so in this case, I'm dividing a string and I'm using it to split. Sorry, I'm using the commas to split a string. In this case, in this task, we will need to divide some strings that we will read from our files into their positions, dividing at the commas. Okay, so we'll see more about this in following weeks, but we will divide them using this split function. Understand how it works, and then you will use it for the programming assignment. Okay, I'm going to go to the more advanced contents in a second, but the last thing that I asked you to do was to solve the I have enough for Couture problem. Okay, so basically here we use the if-else construct. Let me close this one. Okay, basically in what we have seen so far, we only have sequential programming. We have the list of the steps to solve the problem, one after the other. But something that makes programming more powerful and makes it be able to do many more things is being able to control the flow. Not always do exactly the same thing, but change its behavior depending on the conditions. And one very useful thing is branching. So my code proceeds up to a point, and then at some point it can proceed into two different directions. For example, here I have a variable called mySpeed, which is defined as 120, a variable called limit, which is defined, sorry, first one 130, second one 120. And then I have one of these if contracts. If my speed is over the limit, then I will print something that says, yes, it is. Else, if that does not happen, then I will print something along the lines of, no, it is not. So my code will read the value of these variables and will proceed either to yes, it is, or to no, it's not, depending on its value. It will branch. Okay, it will run either this instruction or this instruction. For example, in this case, I can run it. This is running at this moment. When I enter this code, I end up printing is my speed of, and then here I print the value of my speed variable 120 over the 130 over the 120 speed limit. Yes, it is. And this answer has this value of yes, it is, because I entered here. However, if I change the value of the variable to 90 and run it again, then what I print is my speed of 90 over the 120 speed limit? No, it is not. Because instead of entering here, I entered there. Okay? This is the if, the alternative construct, which branches my code and makes it very easy to behave in different ways depending on the values of my variables. Okay? Have a long look at this. This is just the basics, but ifs are very useful. Next week, we will be seeing for. Okay? Have not completely solved I have enough for some Couture problem, but you can do that in a second. Let me just do one thing very fast. For slightly more advanced students, I can have one-liner ifs in what's called the ternary conditional. So I could just copy this part here, my speed and limit, and then instead of having that if this way, I can just say answer is, and then yes, it is, one value. If my speed is over the limit, I think Gemini is getting it right in this case, and else, yes, no, it is not. Okay, and then I print the same thing. I have the same thing as before, but I'm using one line for the if, the ternary conditional. Okay, this is useful to make the code shorter. Python has many, many ways to make your code more compact. Not so much when we have ifs with more branches, because you can do as many branches as you want with this elif condition. So for the beginners, go have a look at this and then solve this. I have enough for some Couture code. Next week, we will be doing a little bit of iterative programming for and while, and a little bit of input-output, and that will put us on the way to solving the first programming project, which we will have some more time to do later. Okay, so that's it for today for the beginners. Let's now go back to the tasks that I set up for the advanced. Sorry, let me give a couple of minutes in case anyone has a question about this. Not at this moment. Again, you can ask questions at any time. No questions in Slack either. So let's move on. Again, ask questions at any moment, okay? um, for in this approximately 20 minutes that I have left, I will 20, yeah, about 20 something, 25. I will be dealing with the introduction to the pandas library. Okay, so for example, here you have a presentation of the pandas library. The pandas library is a very, very useful library that many uh, programmers use all the time. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, everyone fine. I think I had some echo. I don't know if that was a question. Yeah, everything fine?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go. I think probably again someone had their mic open and so something came in. Right. No problem. So the pandas library, very useful. Lots of people use it because it's very good at processing this type of structured data, this type of Excel sheet like spreadsheet like data. In this code, in this bonus unit 1, you have a presentation of how the data structure, the library is structured into pandas series and pandas data frames, which is the main data structure that it uses, and some of the things that it can do. It can do some simple data access to just access one line or one cell in the spreadsheet, and it can do traversal of this pandas data frame of this structured data very fast. It can check whether something is contained or not. It can compute minimum, maximum. It can do very easily plots. Okay, here you have a very quick overview of some of the things that pandas can do. And then we have other units where you can see, for example, how these pandas series work, how the pandas data frame works in some more detail, how to read from a file, which is something that you will need for programming project 1, the data types, okay, how the indices work, and how to do some simple queries, okay, select some parts of the data frame, change them, compute some statistics on to some of the data frame. Okay, I'm not going to stop here today, but you can have a look at it easily. Today, I wanted to tell you a little something more about something a little bit more technical. Basically, I wanted to show you how to clean up data using the pandas library. And the first thing that I will do is I will come here and I will make a copy of this. So actually I could save a copy, but I'm going to do something else. I'm going to make a new notebook. Okay. It takes a little bit. So it has nothing. I'm going to call it in class test. Okay. So I can erase it later. And basically, the first thing that I asked you to do was to just download the files like we do in project 1. So let's do that. So project 1, I have this file download code cell. So let's start here. Okay, I'm copying that part here. And now I'm downloading the files here. As I told you before, this is happening in this remote machine, which now is telling me that it's downloading things and so on. And here at this moment, this win data XALS file has appeared. And if I double click it, okay, it cannot open it directly. It cannot open this file directly. It has downloaded it, I think. Okay, now it has downloaded to my computer. I don't want to do that. Let me show you what I meant in a second. Now I have this one file in my machine and I want to convert it to something that I can use. So I have already given you something that takes the different pages into one spreadsheet and converts them, each of them, into a CSV file. Okay, and I'm just going to call this function. This has all been done before. So now I have taken one Excel file that if you download it, you can see, actually, I can do that for you here in a second. Downloads those files that I have downloaded to my computer. I'm opening them now in my other screen. So let me show it here. Okay. And this is what it looks like. The WinData XALS file has different pages, each of them with different data. Okay. And when I called the Excel to CSV function, what I did was transform each of those pages into one CSV file, which I have here. I'm going to be focusing on this air temp hour here. Okay. And now that I double clicked it here, I can open it. I can open text files and image files and some other files, but apparently not Excel files directly in the Google Colab interface. Okay, let's show a few more. Let's show 100 per page. Okay. And as you can see, I have this file with this composition. I have a first line, which only has this information, second line, which has the names of the columns. And then in each line, I have a date and a few temperatures. And not all of my temperatures have information. Some of them don't have them. So this relates to one day. For example, this is April 1st in 2012. And this is the temperature registered in Zhao Mountain at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 2, 3, 4. And in this case, 5, 6, 7, and so on. They just stopped recording. But some other days I have more data, okay? And in some others, some of the data, some of the hours, they just were not there or forgot to record them. So this is the type of data that I have. And well, I ask you to look at the problems that the data has, and well, some of them are pretty evident, okay? I have this first line that's inconvenient. All my columns are named unnamed 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, even though I have the names here, and some of my data is not present. Even a little bit more. As you can see, with every date, I have the year, month, and day, but I also have this 00000, which accounts for the hours, minutes, and seconds in my date, which are all always 000, which is not very useful. Okay, so the first thing that I will do is import pandas. Okay, so I'm going to just the usual way to do this is import pandas as PD. This is done so that I don't have to write pandas every time I want to call a pandas function. And the first thing that we usually do is read the, sorry, something happened here. My mouse is acting a little bit funny, is read the data. Pandas is very helpful in reading CSV or XLS, any type of data. And one of the functions that is used is this one. I don't want to read windata.csv. I want to read air temp hour CSV. Okay, so let me just copy that from my file system, and then I have already read this. Okay, I can even show the data. I could print it too, but I can show it just calling the name of the variable. And here I have the same thing that I had there for the file, but I have it now in one pandas data frame. Okay, and as you can see, I have an initial line which is very unhelpful because it has only this information that this is the temperature from 2012 April to 2023 March and nothing else. And here I have another column named average, which I had not seen before. What's this? Okay, this is a column that has the average temperature for all of this, but I'm not going to be very interested in this because I don't know how this was computed. Okay, so I think I'm going to ignore this. I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, so let's clean up our data a little bit using pandas. I could, of course, go and edit the file, but that could be very annoying because I would need to manually change things. That also has problems sometimes when I have different operating systems. I can use pandas for that, and it will be more useful. So the first thing that I need to account for is the names of the columns. The names of the columns are here in the first row. In order to do that, any data frame has a variable, variable called columns. So if I print data dot columns, then I get these unnamed columns, okay? But I don't want that. I want this thing to contain this line, okay? So I can just go and select the first row. How do I select a row from a data frame? Well, using the eloc. One of eloc, sorry, it's the second row, it's row number 1, okay? So what I want to do is to do this, okay? Now data.columns contains, sorry, I made an error. Data frame has no object called CP lums, so I made a mistake. Okay, here. And now the columns contain what they should. 1 and then TA and these numbers. Okay, this one is not super helpful, but I'm not going to worry too much about this. Okay. Someone said, a classmate of yours, this eloc thing looks a little bit dangerous. I'm not sure what they meant, but I somewhat agree. As now we know how to process one row, it would be pretty easy to now do 4 row in data eloc of everything, for example. Okay, and then you could now process your data frame. And sometimes you want to do that, but in general, you do not want to process pandas data frames row by row because that's very, very slow. And pandas has many, many functions to do that faster. Okay, so use the eloc function, but use it sparingly. Okay, right. Now I have the name of my columns as I like it, but then I have these 2 initial rows that I don't really want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop them. So in order to drop columns from a data frame, I'm going to use a whole function helpfully named drop. And I'm going to data, the name of my data frame, drop the two first columns in the index from 0 up to 2. And the last index is not included as always in pandas, okay? And I'm going to do it in place. So I want this to modify the data variable. If I did not use the in place, it would be returned as a value and I would need to assign it, okay? So let's do this. And now let's see what data, sorry, not Zeta, data looks like. Yes, I know, not Zeta, data. And now it looks a little bit better, doesn't it? I now have the proper name in my columns and I got rid of these initial two nonsense columns. Okay, so now I have my data frame looking a little bit better. Okay. What else? Then I can get rid of these columns that annoy me. Which ones? So for example, here I have the index and I have a column repeating the index. So I don't really need this. Okay. And I have here this average column, which I don't really not like that much, and a couple of columns that are empty completely. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of those. So again, I'm going to drop some part of the data frame. And what I'm going to drop is columns. Data dot columns. And here columns. And here I have to give the name or number of some columns. If I input here a list of columns, I can input just the name. I want to get rid of columns. I can even get rid of the index 1, 0, 1, which is repeated. These are these two initial columns, and then the last three ones. Sorry, not 0, 1. 0 is the first one, the one with the repeated index, and then I want to get rid of the final three ones. So -1, -2, and -3. -1, not -11, -2 and -3. I guess now, especially beginners might be a little bit freaking out with these negative indices. Yes, Python has a very useful thing. You can see this in the list unit. That's that you can number things, enumerate things from the beginning, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or from the end. -1 is the last column. -0 makes no sense. So -1, -2, and -3. And getting rid of all these columns. But as these are columns, I need to take this into account, and I do this by using the axis equals 1 reserved word. Okay, sorry, axis equals 1 here. This was the list of columns. And now, again, I want to do this in place. And I messed up some of the syntax. So data drop starts with of course, this is a function call, so it has to start with an opening parenthesis. So let's go here. This starts with an opening parenthesis, and now I have the things that I want to drop telling Python that they are columns, and I'm doing that in place. But it's called in place with not a capital P, but in place in general. Okay. But I managed to do two capital letters. In place, number, true. Okay. So let me see. I have some error now. Panda syntax is a little bit annoying. Let me check that I typed all of this correctly. I had not. Let me see what the problem was. Yeah, I had added one extra closing argument there. Okay, so let me just add it all of it here. One has to be, as you can see, very, very careful with Panda syntax because it can be very annoying. Let me just take it back from the top again. So I read the data frame, post the columns, read the columns onto from the proper name, and then drop the columns that I don't want. And now I can paste, show my data, and now my data looks much, much better. Okay. Here, I can even reset the index if I want, because now things start at number 2. This is done with something very usefully called reset index. Okay, so I can just call this here and see data. And now instead of starting at 2, everything starts at 0. Okay, I could even change the name of this. Basically, what I have here is a data frame that's much cleaner than before. And now I can process this data frame much, much easier. Okay, I'm going to include this for completeness, how to normalize the date. Okay, the date is here and it has this annoying 0000 for hours, minutes, and seconds. And if you check it out, you can easily find on the internet, for example, here, this is something that I searched before, and this is something that I recommend that you do. Removing the timestamp from a date time in Pandas data frame. So I want to get rid of the hours, minutes, and seconds. And here you have some code that I have already incorporated into this coding. Okay, so now I have changed it so that my data includes only the date and not the hours, minutes, and seconds. Okay. With this, I can start processing and everything is much, much simpler. I can just save everything to a CSV file. I can do it with, sorry, not this one, not this one, the toCSV function in the Pandas library, okay? If I do this, now I have a new file called new.temp.csv that I can click, and that contains the data that I have processed in the way that I have been showing you. Let me very quickly show you how to compute the average. This column that I have gotten rid of that I wanted to check is something that I did not trust how that was made. So I erased it, but now I can redo it pretty simply. And I'm even going to time this, okay? First of all, I'm going to select only the numerical columns. Okay. If I do this, then data C contains all the columns that are not the date. Okay, I have just selected all the data with all the columns except column 0. Okay, so I have gotten rid of the date because I don't need that to compute the average. I could just call the mean function, which helps me compute averages, and I would put everything into a new column called average, but this is going to give me an error. And it's because Pandas is interpreting all of this as strings and not numbers. Okay, so before I do this, I need to call something called toNumeric. I do it by applying. This is going a little bit fast, but you can check it more slowly later. And I can just apply PD toNumeric. And then that gives me a data C now with a new column that contains the averages. Okay. And I can even put all of these together into one single cell. Sorry. And I can time how long that took to compute. Okay. Here I have the, sorry, I have now erased one more column. So let me rerun this from the start, from the reading of this, the cleaning up of the columns and so on, resetting the index, and then fixing the date. And now I can just run all of this part. Okay. And now I computed the average for every row using this min function in pandas and computed the time. Computing the average column took 130 seconds, which is wrong because I forgot to put the start one here. Okay. So let's see. I don't need to reselect this now and transform to numeric. I can do it in another one. I'm just redoing the whole thing again, but now with another variable, and I'm adding the proper start time. Okay. And now everything is back again, and I have, it took me 0.02 seconds. Okay. So this last part went a little bit fast, but what you need to do, similar computations to what you need to do in programming assignment 1 can be done with pandas very, very fast. And this is a simple way to compute the time they take. Okay. So I hope this was useful. Keep your questions coming if you have them. And next week, we will see some more advanced pandas and how to use loops to process this type of data. So this is the end of the class today. Thank you very much for listening.